Hello and welcome to Rejected Religion Patreon Tier 3, the Garden of Arcane Delights. My guests today are the esteemed Christian Greer and Michelle Oing. Welcome to you, my friends.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's so good to be here, Stephanie.
So this discussion is going to be a little bit different, because normally I like to prepare things ahead of time. My Virgo ascendant and moon is very organized, and I like to plan and make lists and all of that stuff. So I thought we were going to be talking about the history of drugs, psychedelic drugs today, because Christian, you wrote a very interesting article about that. But when I talked to you yesterday, you said, I'm not really feeling that article at the moment. I'd really like to talk about my new book called Void Machines. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about void machines. And I won't have any questions prepared because I have not yet read the book.
Perfect.
So we're just going to jump in feet first. And of course, I'm sure there's a beautiful story behind this. And I'm sure the questions will just flow naturally. And it will be as if we rehearsed this for hours and hours and hours ahead of time. It'll be so natural.
I'm with you. I mean, you really couldn't speak more clearly to my vibe, both as a scholar and teacher. Though, just some background before we dive into Void Machines, which Dr. Oing edited. I should say I have poured years into this essay, and it is a summation of so much of my work. It's more or less an attempt to map the global history of psychedelic cultures. However, instead of detailing every single culture that has used a psychotropic across space and time, I mean, really, you could throw a dart at a map and you'd be hard-pressed to hit a place that's not using psychotropics at any given time or point. Yeah. And it's actually even more interesting when they're not. But instead of doing that, I wanted to map the way in which the use of psychotropics and psychedelic drugs in particular have been written out of so many histories. And so I talk about 3 schools that have competed to tell this story. And I tell the history of these 3 schools. And then really the third school is more of a prototype, because it's not yet fully formed, but I think there's a number of scholars who are really building the foundation for that empirical study. And so, and I should just say the article's called, I'm really happy about this, because that had such a horrible title before. And I talked to a few friends and they're all like, oh, that's awful. Because I was like, a historiographic review. And they're like, please no. So now it's called Historians on Drugs.
Yeah.
It's a little snappier. But anyways, that article is coming out early in the new year, and it's going to be in the South Atlantic Quarterly.
South Atlantic Quarterly.
So I would direct everyone to that. But I don't know. Maybe you've had this. Maybe you've had this as a scholar yourself. You work for so long on something that towards the end, in order to get past the finish line, I have to start a totally new, huge project. And it's like, that will give me the momentum to get through it. And so I'm constantly really launching these mega projects just as an attempt to finish the old ones. Because I'm like, I got to sweep up before I get to this thing. And so by the end of Historians on Drugs, Dr. Oing and I really set out on another pretty big project, which is Void Machines. And I've just been thinking about it. I've been dealing with it. I've been talking about it. And so thanks so much for being willing to pivot. And trust me, Stephanie, I'll be talking about the global history of drugs for the rest of my life. So this is
it'll come up again. It'll come in.
Oh my God, this is like a little oasis. But I do have 2 pieces of housekeeping, and then I'll really pass it over to my colleague. Number 1, I'm teaching a summer school intensive course called The Psychedelic Universe.
Yes.
And I taught it last year with Dr. Eric Davis. And this year, I'm coming back to the University of Amsterdam to teach it again. And I'll be joined by my dear friend, Dr. Gary Latterman. And that's a 2-week intensive seminar. And when I say intensive, it is
every day.
It's every day, man.
All day, every day.
Starts at 9 a.m., ends at 4 p.m. And we really do. Remember I said, I didn't want to go through every culture that uses psychedelics, because that's where we do that. We look at the hard evidence, we looked at less compelling evidence, and we look at the areas where there are no evidence, and just conjecture, and we attempt to put together a big story. And so if anyone's interested, we can have, with Stephanie's permission, link in bio, and you'll get the information for the Psychedelic Universe.
Yes, of course. Happy to
The other
provide
thing I
that.
wanted to tell you is you and I cut a promo a few weeks ago for the other intensive seminar I teach through the University of Amsterdam, which is Forbidden Knowledge. And you can look that up. It's a great promo, and one of your former guests will join me teaching that. Brennan Cattell. Anyways, once that promo was out, it was great. I loved it. I forgot about it. And then I got this text message from a scholar of esotericism, a junior scholar of esotericism, who just started their PhD. And it reminded me why I'm in the game. It was so sweet. I pinged you about it. I didn't give you the full story, but this person texted me and said, hey, lately I've been feeling really down and kind of lost in all of this expectations that are put on me as a junior scholar. And the magic's gone, if you'll excuse the pun, in the study of esotericism. It just feels like work now.
Yeah.
And I can't remember why I got into it. And then he heard me, you, and Brennan joking around and said, oh my God, it was the way in which y'all approached this that reminded me of this. Oh my God, I have actual questions. I'm an actual human with desires and fantasies and imagination. And it's that which fueled my passion. And I just thought, oh, that's so sweet. I have no idea what we did. I have no idea what we said. But I just wanted to give you a kudos, Stephanie, on rejected religion really being like that for a lot of people. And you probably get the feedback all the time, but I just wanted to reiterate it. I'm a happy paid member of your Patreon because I am committed to rejected religion going on, because it is such an important voice in an often cacophonous conversation. And yours cuts through so much of that. Let's just say so many of the conversations that do not fill people with the spirit of curiosity, yours really do. And I just wanted to give you a kudos and say thanks. Gratitude on behalf of all of us scholars of esotericism that might forget sometimes why we got in it. And you really do carry that flame. So I wanted to thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm almost speechless here, but that's not good for my for my brand if I don't say anything, if I can't speak. But I'm touched. I'm really touched, because yes, I do have some people that are voicing their appreciation, but honestly, it's not like everybody is knocking down my door every day to congratulate me, of course. So sometimes, honestly, I also have feelings like that. Like, what is this really worth doing? Is this really worth it? And I put all this time and effort and energy into it. Does it matter? Does anybody care? But apparently they do.
Yes, we do. Please keep it up, and really going through your archive. It's an incredible collection of scholars.
Yes, it is. I'm lucky.
And just fascinating. And well, perhaps luck has something to do with it, but it's also talent. And so I just really wanted to shine a spotlight on your talent here and tell you how eager I am to always come back. But I really want to open a space for Dr. Oing. You and I, Stephanie, if people listen to past shows, we can yap. You know us, man. But I really want to open up a space here for Dr. Oing.
Yes, I'm happy to welcome Michelle back. I mean, you were here, you were both a guest. I don't know when that was. I can't remember when you were talking about the book that you wrote together about your pilgrimage. And now the title of the book escapes me.
Here it is.
Kumano Kodo, Pilgrimage to Power Spots. Thank you so much for refreshing my memory. I knew it had something to do with K's, but I couldn't remember. So I'm very, very, very happy to welcome you back. Now, void machines. I want to know, what does this mean? What the heck do you mean? I'm going to throw in a little Fargo quote there for you. What are we talking about? Void machines. What is this?
So void machines came out actually of Kumano Kodo, or it's in Kumano Kodo, let's say. It existed prior to Kumano Kodo as an idea. But it is about, in many ways, it's a continuation of the Pilgrimage Project, because it's about what we think of as another way of sort of reintegrating after pilgrimage, after peak experiences, right? Not to, dance around the psychedelic question here, but like so many peak experiences in our lives, something happens to you, you feel changed, you feel like a new person, then you get back and the mundane world is there. And suddenly all those little insights you had are being eroded at every turn.
Yeah.
And so Void Machines is really a showcase of Christians' collage work, which is very literally collage. When you see them printed on the page, it looks so beautiful. You think they must be digitally mastered, but it's just glue and paper and scissors and hours of hard work. And that's one process of reintegration. And then for me, also editing this book, working with Christian and working with our collaborators was another kind of mode of reintegration, of keeping those lessons of the road, the pilgrimage road, that peak experience, always present in my life and in our life. This idea of what does it mean to be on the road forever without actually, leaving everything and bunking off and just walking around forever. So that's really where that started with the idea of the Void Machine, as when you have these peak experiences, things crumble, but that can be good. That can be really powerful. Sort of the void in the machine.
Okay. So this image, is this like a, what's the term that my brain is not helping me today with my vocabulary, but is this symbolic of the feelings that you had during this peak experience? Does this like help to recall that experience when you view the image?
Yeah, absolutely. Though I should say Void Machines as a concept, I like to think it comes straight out of like a Jack Kirby comic because we're both scholars, sometimes our writing can lean towards the abstruse or the turgid, and we really try to resist that when we write about pilgrimage, because we're not writing for academics. We're writing, number one, for ourselves, to amuse ourselves. Number two, we're writing for other people who are curious about this, and we want to be as clear as possible. And it gets difficult because we're dealing with really abstract states of emotion, abstract states of psychology. And so the tack that I find to be somewhat productive is to use science fictional language, or to almost use narrative or fiction narrative as a vehicle to communicate otherwise incommunicable ideas.
Okay.
And so Void Machines is just like a very memorable term for the little tricks and techniques and practices that we use to remember some of these insights. That also, I think that, whether you're walking for 1 week, 2 weeks, or 6 months, that much silence invites in so many new perspectives. But it also invites in, I think, let's just call them animistic perceptions, animistic ideas. And who's to say that that's the ultimate goal?
Right.
Like, what's beyond animism? And so I think that often we're pushing on these questions that, again, we're getting into very weird territory here. So we drop little breadcrumbs along the way. And Void Machines is just one little breadcrumb, one little way marker of the type of experiments that we're running during our pilgrimages.
I'm trained as an art historian, so objects have an intangible, like almost often ineffable meaning, in our lives. We think about this a lot with pilgrimage. We have literal cases in our house of things we picked up on pilgrimage that in and of themselves have no intrinsic value. It's tat, it's tourist junk. But there is something about those objects that is a little trigger point for memory and for not just memory, but also in some ways time travel. It actually puts me into those emotional states, sometimes even physical states, just by having it around or interacting with it. And I think Void Machines has an almost talismanic quality. As you're saying, it's a breadcrumb, but it's also like a little shining beacon that you can, like, when you get near, or when I get near, I remember certain things. And so maybe it is like what you were suggesting about getting back into certain emotional states, just by a kind of magic spell word of like Void Machines.
So
not thinking about it. Oh, sorry, Stephanie.
Sorry, I gotta get this question in here.
So really taking you at your word here. No, Stephanie, please.
I'm so sorry. I was just curious about the word void. So void doesn't mean this negative, pejorative state of being. It's more of this separated from the the humdrum day-to-day life that you get kind of sucked up into when you forget what's really worthwhile, what matters. Because you said that before in the other interview, that when you're in this other mode of being, that you start to think differently. The sensations become different. Your physical sensations, your the way you think about things becomes different. The things you focus on, your attention is different. Sounds are just different, and it's not something that you can reproduce once you get back home. So it's a special, I don't know, is it liminal? Is this kind of a special in between state? Is that what you mean by void?
Yeah. I mean, I said yes, but you're just telling me. It's one of those situations where someone asks a question. It's like, oh yeah, I've thought that a long time, but I've never thought to put it in those words. So Stephanie, thanks so much for collaborating with me right now on what a void machine might be. Yes. And I'm thinking off the top of my head, but I think this is right. There are little objects that emit a disruptive frequency, and it disrupts the patterns and everyday routines that, what's this? It's the looking glass theory of personality. I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I'm who I think you think I am. And so these are little devices that emanate a little disruptor signal where a little space is open in my consciousness. And in that space floods in all of these very strange insights that I had while on the road. And if you place enough of them around your house, I think you can really have a sort of Faraday cage. Okay, I'm being kind of funny here, but you can have a little Faraday cage that reminds you of these ideals and values and insights that really point towards a revolution of everyday life. Because so often what I fear is not only losing touch with some of these alterations of consciousness and the ideals I've found within them, but why I would ever be interested in them to begin with. That's what's really scary for me. Not just the ideals, but a sort of dispiriting sense of valuelessness, or I just get so caught up in my job or my career that I just kind of go with the flow. That is something that I think it could happen. It could happen to me. It could happen to anyone.
Right.
And you just start to look to others to validate your experience, or you look to other external sources of value as a means of, understanding your own life. And that's so dangerous. And here I'm thinking of this, when we do lectures, it's not unusual for someone in the audience to ask, wow, pilgrimage sounds so great. This sounds so exciting. And my life seems so rough and it doesn't seem like anything's ever going to change. What should I do? How should I get into this? And while I would love to be able to tell them, oh, you should start walking this pilgrimage or start joining that group, I can't, because the value that we found in pilgrimage is our thing. That's what called out to it. No one asked us to do it. No one, I like
wants us to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like these are the books we're writing, like Kumano Kodo, are the books that no one wants, in the sense of no one's begging for it. We're not contracted to do it. We self-publish them. I mean, they're vanity. I mean, ideally, we'd lose money on them because that would teach us a lesson. When people buy books, it only encourages us. But that's why it's so valuable. That's why it's so meaningful. Walking that edge between this is the most important thing in my life and my God, if I wasted the last, it's that balance. And going back to rejected religion, Stephanie, when you said sometimes I don't know if I should do it, I thought, yes, that means Stephanie is plugged into a meaningful self-motivated project. A project that will either define your life or ruin it. And I don't want it any other way. I wouldn't want to live any other way. And it's funny that pilgrimage gets me so geared up, so enthusiastic. And the joke I make is, I'm a historian of psychedelics, but when I really want to get to extreme experiences, I talk about pilgrimage. It's a joke. People don't usually think it's the case, but I do. And it's because it's almost as though psychedelics are safe these days. I mean, you could go to work and your boss might be microdosing. I don't think we'll ever get there with pilgrimage because it demands time. And time is the ultimate commodity. It's the ultimate thing that you can't make more of. And pilgrimage demands it. And that's what makes it so difficult and rewarding, incidentally.
Right.
And in addition to time, it also I think what makes it continue to be unsafe, let's say, as a topic, is for most people in most common understandings, it has something to do with religion of some kind, and specifically institutional religions, right? You know, the Camino de Santiago, it has to do with Catholicism. The Hajj has to do with Islam. The various pilgrimages you can take to see where Buddha lived, that's Buddhism, right? So it can't be disassociated from religious structures, which is tough to talk about, especially if that's not your practice, or if you have a difficult relationship with, maybe you used to be Catholic and you aren't anymore. There's an edge there that's not the kind of panacea that psychedelics, of course, are not, but are, in my non-expert opinion, kind of marketed as these days. It's Absolutely. Like this will fix you. It doesn't matter what you believe. You'll see the spirits you need to, and it's a little easier than like, okay, I showed up in Santiago and I met St. James, and I don't think that he's real, but I met him and he was there, and it was creepy and strange and beautiful and generative. It's uncomfortable, really.
That raises a question here. The answer might be obvious, and I hope it is. What if everything is real? What if everything is real, including your imagination, including everyone's religious imagination, so that you show up on the pilgrimage road without any real preparation or investment in the Catholic Church? If you take the approach that everything is real, then you can more or less see what happens. And if something happens, then that can be a bellwether for your inner spiritual life. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so I wonder, there's this idea that pilgrimage is its own mystical tradition, that it's like, you're going to be closer to other people who have taken pilgrimage than people in the faith community that you're a part of. And I've always been attracted to that idea. I think that's interesting. I don't necessarily believe it, but I think there's something to it.
Yeah.
I think there's something to it. And I should say that, we organize a pilgrimage confraternity called the Order of St. George's Horse, and we really are centered on the Camino de Santiago de Compostela in northwest Spain. Terminates in northwest Spain. And when people ask if we're Catholic, the blunt answer is no. We are not part of the Roman Catholic Church. However, we are pilgrims that have walked this path for just about 10 years annually and have had strong experiences on this, let's say, Catholic-coded holy road. However, what really shocked me is digging into the history with your help as an art historian with the focus on the Middle Ages, looking from the Middle Ages to present. What I've noticed is there are communities and communities and communities of people who, like us, are devoted to St. James, but not the Roman Catholic Church. So they are absolutely committed to this place and these enchanted groves and that holy well and that albergues and this little chapel and the spirits that inhabit this little turret, this little piece of road in this big wide world. And then I learned from Dr. Stone, a book written in the early 20th century, that it's called the Cult of St. James. And so basically you could go all the way back to the Middle Ages and you have people being like, oh, I'm part of the Cult of St. James. I don't know much about Roman Catholicism. I don't know much about this Jesus guy, but I do know that the St. James, and I thought, wow, I guess that's one of the virtues of reading history is you don't feel so alone.
Yeah.
Whatever you're going through, whatever you've experienced, however far out you get, I think if you have enough time and energy to really do some deep diving, you'll find others like you that have approached similar mysteries. And for us, that's an essential part of this pilgrimage confraternity. So it's really quite important.
It's about the experience that you have and not so much about the trappings of the faith or whatever system it is of belief. It's about your own experiences and what you make of it.
Well, actually, I think that's a good segue. We have a few slides, if that's all right, we'd like to show when we get into some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll just riff here. Usually we have lots and lots to say, and we never get through all the slides, but I'm determined to just be myself and have fun because it's you, Stephanie, and you open up a space for that. But for this, I'd like to invite Dr. Oing to walk us through some of these platforms.
Yeah, so we've talked about the order, and I should say, Void Machines itself, the book, is if you can see
it. Oh, no, we're screen
yeah,
sharing.
we're
They
screen
can't see
sharing.
it.
Okay, we'll show
Okay.
the book in a second. Is really we'll get into it, but it is kind of a crystallization of many of the things that the OSGH, as we call it, has to do, and not just because it's a collaboration with Christian and I, but also because the contributors, the various people that we worked with, the graphic designer, and people who contributed essays, are all part of the order, and this book is a kind of outward-facing arm of that. So, the order is private, but it's not secret, which is we keep private the things that we experience and the pilgrimages and the jokes and everything. Those are secret those are private to our group, but the order itself is not secret. It's facing outwards, and we talk about it like we're doing right now.
And we have hats and shirts.
I've got earrings on today.
And keychains. We have all the bump you could ever want. But there's just something very special about having a private zone where you can really experiment with ideas, and you're in a network of people who you trust to be able to understand extreme experiences without coming to a judgment, and really bringing their own extreme experiences to the table as a means of understanding what happens when you go on pilgrimage. I should also say it's great because in many ways, what we encourage in the order is, there's a great song by the Talking Heads, which is Stop Making Sense. Just because you have an extreme experience doesn't mean you have to care about it. And there's something really important for us about just being cool, man. Like, something extreme can happen. It's like, that's great, but where are we going for lunch? I guess we're trying to normalize the extreme alteration of consciousness. And there's something really, I think, important to be said for not taking everything that happens to you so seriously.
Then, we're circling back a little bit to what we were just talking about, but we like to, it's a little bit of a joke, but we like to say we're religious but not spiritual, which is to say, really do not care what you believe. Just do the same rituals as us. Yeah. Go on the pilgrimage, come into the chapel or the temple, do the things that are outward expressions of various kinds of faiths and traditions, and then do what you want with that, with your own inner life and your own decisions about what that means to you. So we are really emphasizing the power of kind of a ritual action, rather than doctrine or dogma, let's say.
Oh, that's the thing. The OGH has no beliefs.
No.
We don't have any tenets, or what do we say? We don't care about your inner life. We just want you to go on pilgrimage with us. See what happens. Yeah.
And then finally, on that note, it's serious but not sober, which is to say that, there can be a misapprehension that the only things that matter have to be very sober and talked about in a very, straightforward manner. And this means that, and this means that. But in our learned opinion, you can be very serious. Things can be very serious, and they can still be funny and fun and generative and playful, and they can fall apart and they can be built back up. It's about like leaning into a kind of generative experimental expressionism rather than a sort of like studied, you must do this and you must do that. So it's balancing ritual with play, let's say.
And I would say what I really love is that's the most controversial part of the whole OSGH, the sober, the serious but not sober thing. And what I've realized is we exist in a tradition of other esoteric religious groupings that have transgressed this impossible boundary, which is to say, like, humor is a language for theological experiences. Humor is such an integral part of the human experience, yet it seems to be totally left out of the conversation of esoteric, occult, religious, spiritual traditions. It's wild. And okay, fine. You have some traditions that allow for a little humor, but that's a side project. Humor for us is a central aspect of what we do. For a very clear reason is it lets you put into context very difficult experiences. If you can laugh about something that happened to you, to me, it illustrates that you are seeing it from a number of different dimensions. If you can laugh at something, you can see what you're seeing as part of a larger experience. So anyways, I just say that, we have a lot to say about humor within our particular pilgrimage confraternity, and it's something that we really encourage. Though I have to say, because Dr. Oing is a medievalist, it's always great when we're on the road and you meet someone that like only eats Luna bars and drinks bottled water like the whole time. And they're like, I'm the most authentic pilgrim ever. And that's where like I call in like, Michelle, the hit woman. It's like, I'm going to stop you there as a historian of the Middle Ages. What we see when we look at pilgrimage in the Middle Ages, I mean, what do we see?
It's just traveling itself was a weird thing to do. So you're going to be weird. You're going to meet weirdos on the road, and you've left home for the first time. You're getting drunk. You're seeing prostitutes. You're meeting people you had never met before. You're getting into awkward situations. I mean, if you've ever heard or read anything of the Canterbury Tales,
oh my God,
it's just all jokes. It's just a bunch of people ostensibly pious doing this pious thing who are just goofing off the whole time. And they never get to Canterbury. And yes, that's because Chaucer died. But I think it's also it's expressive of the ethos of pilgrimage.
There's a really great reworking of Canterbury Tales by Ackroyd, and it came out just a few years ago. If anyone's interested in getting to the Canterbury Tales, it can be a really difficult read.
Yeah, it's like, how sometimes it's hard to understand the jokes in Shakespeare. Like, just magnify that by 10 because it's an even further away English joke dialect.
Wait, do you know the opening of Canterbury Tales?
Yeah, I used to know the first 10 lines, but now I just know, when April with his sure suita, the draught of March hath pierced to the ruta. It's the only part I know.
That's Old English?
Yeah.
Anyways, if you want to get into Canterbury Tales, it's hilarious, it's bawdy, it's intoxicated, it's funny, and there's a modern retelling, and that's by Peter Ackroyd.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So anyone wants a...
Okay,
also,
I'll make a note of that.
Please stay away from Pilgrim's Progress.
Ugh.
Please, no more Pilgrim's Progress. It's such an unfortunate touchstone.
Yeah.
You talk about the most serious
and sober.
It's this Protestant account. So no thanks to that. Okay, let's go to the second one.
Okay.
All right, so let's see if we can get this. All right, so these are the two primary pilgrimages that we lead groups on. And specifically the Camino de Santiago. And it's always funny when people ask, hey, where does the Camino de Santiago start? It starts wherever the hell you want. It starts where you are right now. It's where it ends that's important. Right. It ends at Santiago. Or if you're being cheeky, it ends in Finisterre, which is about 160 kilometers beyond Santiago. 160?
I think 80, I think.
Oh, it's 80.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And that's
160 both ways. If you walk both ways.
That's right. Yeah, there and back. It's 80 kilometers from Santiago, and it is Finisterre, the final point of the world, the end of the world. Anyways, you could start wherever you want. And on the left side, you'll see the Kumano Kodo. And these are the only two pilgrimages recognized by UNESCO. No other pilgrimages in the world are recognized as having universal human value. And it's not like we're any big fans of UNESCO. In fact, if you read Kumano Kodo, we really have we have an antagonism against UNESCO.
I remember.
Which is like a funny opponent.
Enemy.
Yeah, we never got into the game to beef with them. It just so happened that we realized that there's some economic malpractice going on when it comes to the way in which pilgrimages get recognized. But nonetheless, those are the two we like to look at. And I should just say the OSGH, the big thing we do every year, our organizational structure is organized, we're really organized around an annual pilgrimage, which we take in the spring. And the reason we take it in the spring is because in the summer, these roads become so clogged up, and just the Camino itself, what's the stat? How many millions are on the trail? It's wild.
Even just this year, the people who arrived in Santiago, so that's only the people who walked into Santiago. There's no saying how many more were just out there. It was 500,000 people, which is the largest number ever, who got their Compostela. So that also doesn't include people who just did it and didn't care about getting the official documentation. There's could be, 1 million plus people on the road throughout the course of the year.
Yeah. So anyways, organizational structure, a lot of it too is us reaching out to elderly members of our tribe, so to speak. So these would either be authors or scholars, and really giving them a platform beyond the written word. So someone who occupies a high place in our confraternity is someone like Renata Adler. If you know this author, she's a novelist, journalist, film critic, who we've been hanging out with for the last 15 years of our life. And anyways, it's just an opportunity for her to be herself and to be able, and she wrote a fantastic book that we consider core pilgrimage literature, which is Pitch Dark, about a trip she took to Ireland. And it's great to make up a little religious group and then just throw parties for friends and be like, this is really official, you know, and it's like just to dress up and have fun. But another elder member, Grand Masters John St. Clair, who died recently, and it was great having him be a part of our group. And, you know, having friends from every different, you know, having friends that are in their 70s, friends that are in their 40s, and friends that are in their 20s is really cool, you know, to have a little organization that features friends from every different age cohort. It's just a lot of fun. Cool. So we can move on. We do a lot of stuff. We do, the Order St. George's Horse produces fanzines. We have, that's Michelle's Lovecraft fanzine, which is really cool.
Ooh.
And then the one on the way left is Exotic Slime fanzine I put out for about 10 years. The Collectonomicon, which is an APA, it's a fanzine that you can only read if you contribute to it. So you have to.
Okay.
Yeah. So you get a handful of writings, and that you read those writings and respond to those writings, and then include your contribution and then mail it to the next person. And then they read everything and then include their responses. So basically what started as like a chain letter is now like a phone book of private writings about pilgrimage and responses to pilgrimage and responses.
Little objects too. Some of our friends make little things that they send us.
Right. So there's this thing circulating the globe, which is like the brain center of the OSGH, and it's called the Collectonomicon. Yep. And so it's just a lot of fun. It's a great way to have intentional fun with your friends as you start a little. Oh, and I should say that we're also a 501c3 religious nonprofit now. So we've gone I know.
Okay.
We don't know why we did it either, Stephanie. I have no clue why. Maybe I was just bored and wanted a project, but I was like, all right, let's get official recognition by the government. Why not? Why the hell not? Party with God, as my friends like to say. Party with God. Okay. The annual pilgrimage, and here's some photos. I think Michelle has the background in these photos, no?
Oh, sure. I mean, so on the left, I'm pretty sure this is a little Templar chapel. So that's another very cool thing about the Camino is, you know, in addition to the kind of Catholic overlay, you could find a lot of other little stratospheres and layers. So there's famously in Paulo Coelho's book on the pilgrimage, he really leans into the Templar stuff, kind of in a goofy way, but fun to read. And then there's Bibi Bahrami has written this really great book called The Way of the Wild Goose, which is about kind of more of the, let's say, pagan, for lack of a better word, and Templar legends and folk lore that exists on the Camino. So that's a book that's one of those books that I wish I'd written.
Yeah.
You read a book and you're like, oh man, they got their... And then in the middle we have just some of our group on the road together. And you know, this is something we talk about a lot, is just as we did before. It's just a lot of walking together in silence. And sometimes you're talking, but the groups kind of form and mold and fall and rejoin over the course of those 8 or 10 hours that you're walking. And then on the right, we just have a really, I think, in my opinion, a very atmospheric idea of what it's like to get up in the morning before the sun is up and you just start going and the streets are deserted. And the only sort of, you know, you have these physical signs of the pilgrimage with the shell that they use to show it. But that's really it. It's just you out there on the road at the end of the day.
So that's sign that's on the right picture, on the right side of the picture with the yellow lines.
Sort of, right. It looks kind of like a sun with rays. But if you were to turn it 90 degrees, it represents the scallop shell, which is the traditional emblem of the pilgrim. So,
and the arrow is pointing the way where you're supposed to walk.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. And you know, Stephanie, before this turns into just a PowerPoint presentation, we'll just kind of skip to some slides that are just a little bit more generative for conversation. I should just say though that, you know, people ask what it's like being in the order, and I should say at the very basic minimum, it means we send you a packing list. That's, you know, the order, you know, most of our activity is we both run Instagram accounts, and that's where that's our public facing organs, communication organs. And basically someone will ping us and it'll be like, oh yeah, sure, here's the packing list. And when you go on pilgrimage with us, you are strongly encouraged to just stick to the packing list. And anything you bring, of course, you're free to bring whatever you want. But, having done it for so long, we have a clear sense of what you'll need and what you won't need. Though I do have visions of Samwise Gamgee in Lord of the Rings, who brings like 3 different types of pots and pans with him.
Right.
I love that idea.
And his little box of salt. And
Very important.
I do like.
I'd also bring a box of salt, so I guess I am like Samwise.
Yeah, yeah. It's the creature comforts, I suppose. But one thing that we really insist on is not just the packing list, but in the lead up to us taking our annual pilgrimage, and we lead group pilgrimages, is what we call the saturation job, which is we call it the saturation job. And we start this 3 months before we actually get on the road, and it is an intensive investigation of the region, history, and folklore of the particular holy road we'll be walking. And really, the saturation job can be interpreted in so many ways. I took the concept from Charles Olson, the poet, but the idea is you replace entertainment. You replace doom scrolling. You replace all of these little distractions in your life with a single-minded focus to become an expert in some aspect of the pilgrimage you're taking. And what's funny is it doesn't take long before your attention is just zeroed in on, oh my God, Sir Francis Drake was an English pirate that actually occupied Santiago. Like, there is a pirate dimension of this story. Okay, well, and then we had a friend that became an expert on pirates. And just like that became their access point. But there's another dynamic at play, which is the road rewards people who know its twists and turns. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, but it's a commitment that you make, and that commitment is repaid. Not only on a very terrestrial level, which is, it would be such a shame if you walked into a bar that is famous across the region for having herba liqueur, like this homemade moonshine that is just, you can't anywhere else. Yeah.
And I know it.
Like you would just be missing out on so much if you made those little mistakes by virtue of not doing your research. And so on a very mundane level, we accumulate as much of that prosaic knowledge as we can, but also learning the trail spirits' names and what they like, and where Templars went to do whatever. It opens up a doorway in your imagination, and it gives you a name for certain experiences and certain things, and it lets you move through the different stratifications of history. And finally, the ultimate esoteric dimension of the saturation job is you learn what's been left out of the story. As all good scholars of esotericism, we learn the way in which scholars have marginalized ideas. And really, when we approach pilgrimage, our minds are magnetized towards rejected knowledge on, let's just say, the Kumano Kodo or on the Camino de Santiago. And it's in that rejected knowledge that we find so many cool stories. The lost voices. In recovering those lost voices, you find yourself suffused with all of these new potentialities, all of these new narratives. And it's just, you talk about inspiration, Stephanie, this is the jet fuel for so much of our writing. And as you know, we have an underground radio show, and we have so much cultural production. So much of that is determined by recovering these lost stories. No, we really do our best to recover an empirical history. And anyways, so much of that recovery informs the cultural production of the Camino, of the Order of St. George's Horse. So we're going to skip ahead, but this is what pilgrimage looks like. People ask, oh, what it's walking for 7 to 10 hours. like this. This is actually the Jakobsweg. This is a
Yeah.
pilgrimage we took in
The Southern Netherlands.
the Southern
I
Netherlands.
was going to say, this looks very much like a Dutch landscape.
It very much is. Look how picturesque that is. I mean, this little desire path with the water
my
on the left. And yeah, and
Great.
there's a lot of really early morning. This is a Neolithic city, in northwest Spain, and it's great because from what we can tell, it's mainly used for people to picnic. So it's pretty
Okay.
cool. But anyways, people want to know what pilgrimage. It's walking 7 to 10 hours, mostly in silence, every day. And yeah, you can really you can get pretty deep, but it's also fun. It's not just always silence. You can also have a good time. All right,
So is this something that you have to train for?
Not really.
I mean, physically.
Yeah, that's maybe a dumb question, but
oh no, I mean, so one of the things that I also, speaking of the saturation job, one of the little corners of pilgrimage lore that I found really interesting is there's actually a Facebook group for people who identify as women only and who are interested in walking the Camino on their own. It's called Camigas, so Camino plus Amiga.
Okay.
And there's a lot of discussion on there about training and like what kind of underwear to pack and like extremely granular questions. And a lot of that is because a lot of the women on there are, are not maybe so physically active in their own life. They're not like running marathons all the time. So they share a lot of tips about when to start training to be prepared to walk, essentially minimum 15 up to 30 kilometers a day if you're really pushing yourself. So I think there is physical preparation that can be done. But a lot of it is just paying attention to your own body. I think it's really a lesson in listening to yourself. I last year walked a little piece of the Camino by myself in France, and I found that it's a lot harder to listen to your body when you're alone, in my experience. So there were days I pushed myself too hard, and I should have not walked that last 5 to 7 kilometers. So training helps. But I think it's the load gets lighter when you're with a group as well, I think.
But I should also say that we take care of each other. And so if someone in the Camino is, stopping to adjust their boots a lot or flagging a little bit, we very much are tuned in to proactively addressing, that's how injuries happen. And within the Collectonomicon, there are these horror stories of injuries that we have not personally had, but we've encountered people that will just tell you, it's like, I knew I should have stopped, but I kept going. And you just hear a debilitating thing. And it could have been prevented if they just kind of cooled out for a day or two and listened to their body.
Okay. So
yikes. All right. We won't get into miracles. We won't get into packing. We just want to there it is. Get into some of these voice themes.
Yeah. Let's see some of these images. I'm super interested to know what
the hell's going on.
Well, no, not well. Yeah, that too. Yeah, I'll be honest. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on. So no, but yeah, I'd like to see more of the images that you've made for this because thinking back about what you said earlier about you think it's all digitally made. It's not. This is all handmade. Stuff here that we're looking at, and I'm on like the artistic side, what's motivating you to choose what you choose? Is it a random thing? Are you thinking about it ahead of time? Like, I want these elements to be in this image.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you work in this?
Yeah, so I'll just show you. So here on the left, you'll see what it looks like when I'm working. It's each one of these collages has anywhere from 50 to 300 discrete elements in it. And here's the joke. I say, my favorite part about making a collage is the process of selecting the books. And for this, we go to like a book fair. There's like a monthly book fair that I go to, and I visit thrift stores every week looking for books that I'd like to come up. So I should say, Stephanie, you can't fool the gods, that you have to cut up original Jack Kirby comic books. You have to cut up expensive Taschen books on the occult. You can't counterfeit it. And I wish you could. I wish I could just print stuff off the internet, but no, that's an original Swamp Thing from an Alan Moore run on Swamp Thing. You know, that's an original. All this stuff is taken from Ethiopian books on magic scrolls, tantric books on tantric mandalas. Here you see a figure from the anime, from the manga. Okay. My favorite part about making collages is selecting the material to cut up, because it's like a hunt. And you find a really fantastic book at the thrift store, and it's really beautiful, and the colors really pop. And actually, you're really good at. You've started.
Yeah, my role in this is the curatorial eye. So I'm in the bookstores being like, oh, very interesting. And also, again, as an art historian, some art books with the way that they print images are very bad, and it doesn't look good. Some of them just they've poured money into it, and I love in your collages the way that you have not just the different iconography of manga and Kirby comics and art history books and magic scrolls, but the difference in like paper quality. So you can see the kind of graininess of a comic book page next to the really high def medieval manuscript that's been reproduced in a book on medieval art. And I like that tension, not just in images, but also in the physical reality of the way that these things are produced. It shows up really well in these collages.
Yeah, thanks. And on the left side, you'll see just one small stack of the material that I use when I cut stuff up. And it's always a balance between like, oh my God, I have too much. I have to start cranking out collages, or I don't have enough to finish this collage because in my mind's eye, I know what goes there and I don't have that thing.
So this is all intuitive. It's like all automatic. You're not really thinking ahead about, oh, I need this particular image. Is it, or maybe I'm wrong. Do you?
No, you're exactly right. So The second part of the joke is, my favorite part is collecting books until I start to sit down and cut. And then I'll start cutting out. You'll see little elements there. And that takes, every collage takes about 6 to 10 hours to make. And I do it in one sitting. So I don't return to collages. I sit down and I make one, and that's that.
Okay.
And it's the sitting and quiet meditative cutting that takes about 3 hours. And I say, oh no, that's my favorite part. Quietly cutting these things out. And then I start to arrange it. And I think, no, it's arranging it. That's my favorite part. Because how do I put this? When I start to put the pieces together, it really does feel like when a piece goes someplace, I get like pinged. It feels hot. And when I put a thing and it doesn't go there, it feels cold. And I just keep moving it around until I feel as though the things naturally resonate. They resonate in a way that I can recognize in my body. And that's when I move on to another thing. I should say here.
That's amazing.
Stephanie, see those little guys on the bottom here? This is zoom in. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see like 2 gnomes walking on the. They are the size of the tip of a pencil. I can't like.
Oh my God.
So I use tiny eyebrow tweezers to move them.
How did you cut that out?
Well, if you see, I couldn't even get them specific, like perfect. You'll see there's two on the.
Small to be cut.
They're too small, so I use medical scalpels.
Yeah, okay.
My brother's the one that really got me into this because he saw just how microscopic. So you can picture me with like a jeweler's lens, like a little scalpel, and if I sneeze, it just And once I put them there, I just felt a rush because I knew that these little gnomes lived in this world. And when I put them in,
you were returning them there.
And and often, Jeffrey Kripal writes about this, which is like, we are being authored, how do you write all these books? Well, thankfully it's not me. I'm like channeling something. I don't know if that's right, but when I look at a collage, I recognize that I knew what it looked like before I started. And that's why it feels hot and cold, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yes, it makes perfect sense to me.
And so
I have to say one thing that I, find so fascinating about these is that it's really easy for me to look at an image like this and think that I've gotten it. Like I look at the full image and I'm like, very interesting. And I can kind of absorb it all at once. But then there's something about them that makes me come back, because I realize suddenly, again, I think that's the really powerful thing about collage, is when it's done well, at least, it presents a unified whole, but that unification is also being disrupted at every instance here. So I look at it, I'm like, very good. Like Christian will show me when he's working on them, I'm like, oh, I love that. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And then I still love it, but I feel this urge to look closer. And even though I'm an art historian, that kind of goes away after a while when you're just working on these things in an academic sense. It's like, oh yeah, this is over here and there's this like detail over here. But these, I like it. For me, the rush comes when I lean in and I'm actually like, oh, that is not, this globe is not from the same source as this globe, and not from the same source as this globe. And what are these? And who are the gods here? Oh, these are the gods. It puts me on this path of internal storytelling that isn't altogether verbal or narrative, but I have the pleasure of kind of walking through these little piece by piece and step by step. And because of that sort of disconnect that presents at first as somehow whole.